Hi there, I hope you're well. Today I want to tell you a story about a transaction that went totally wrong. The reason why I want to tell you about this deal is one, to highlight the possible risks that a business can face in international trade, and two, how to mitigate those risks. So there is a business which came to consult with me. They are a South African entity who were looking to buy shoes from China. I think it was sneakers, right? And they were looking to buy many pairs of sneakers, all plain white. As you know, China is one, if not the biggest trading country with South Africa for many years. It's either number one or number two. If you go to trade statistics, when you go to South African Revenue Services website, you will see the trade stats, and it will show you which country is the biggest trading partner of South Africa. And if you want, you can zoom in so that you can break the data down into commodities. And you can even go further deeper if you want to get more details. So this South African entity was looking to buy these shoes from China. So when I am sitting across the table with a client, the first thing I do is to understand the nature of the business, and also to understand the nature of the transaction, so that I can hear how the client has planned to execute the transaction, so that I can also see where are the possible red flags, and then assist the client to mitigate the risks. But also many times I structure the deal on behalf of the client and assist them to execute the deal from A to Z. So there are many risks in international trade, many. Um, if I have time, I'll do the video just focusing on risks some other time. So like I've mentioned, there's two entities here: a South African business who will be the importer or the buyer, and the Chinese business who will be the exporter or the supplier of the goods. Now let's get into the modus operandi, which was critical. So I asked the client to explain to me what it is that they're looking to do. So let's get into the modus operandi. So I asked the client to explain to me what it is that they're looking to do. In other words, to explain to me the transaction from A to Z as to how they plan to have it unfold. First of all, like any business transaction, the two entities, which is the South African buyer and the Chinese seller, got into a contract of sale, right? And after they have agreed and signed the contract, then the Chinese supplier issued a pro forma invoice. Now, to have a competent pro forma invoice, there's certain details that need to be in the invoice, which is another topic for another day. The pro forma invoice basically will stipulate what commodity is being traded, what is the value, what is a unit price, what is the total value of the deal, what are the payment details of the supplier because he needs to get paid, the physical addresses and contact details of both entities, which is the supplier and the buyer, Incoterms, payment terms, shipping terms, you name it. Everything, as much detail as possible needs to be there, but only sufficient information that is going to be utilized by the freight forwarder, by the customs clearing agent, and by the financial institutions or commercial banks. Now, another thing that was in the invoice was the specification of the shoes. So whenever a product is being traded, there'll be like a one-liner which will explain in a nutshell the specifications of the shoes. It will say, for example, in this instances, is shoes white in color, sneakers, right? And then it's got laces, just to give you an example. And then whatever other specifications are supposed to be in the pro forma invoice will be there. So these two entities are looking to trade on open account terms. So by open account, meaning there is no guarantee of any sort. There is no payment guarantee, performance guarantee, which are instruments facilitated by banks. Also, insurers also get involved in guarantees or insurance. Even like your your credit insurance agencies also get involved in issuing such instruments. There's also no letter of credit, so there is no security whatsoever for the South African buyer. And remember, when I look at the transaction and I'm sitting with a South African buyer, I'm firstly prioritizing his interest to make sure that what he buys is exactly what he's going to get. Another thing with foreign exchange, the client is not hedging. They're going to make payment in USD at a certain point in time. And I asked if they are going to hedge. Are they going to take forward cover? How are they going to hedge currency? As you know, there's always currency fluctuations. So there is no hedging in this deal. Another thing, the Incoterms, which are international commercial terms, which basically stipulates the responsibilities as to at what point does the responsibility fall from the supplier to the buyer in terms of shipment, right? So the Incoterm, also another topic for another day. The Incoterm here is CIF, cost, insurance, and freight. And I asked the client a couple of questions around that. We'll get into that in a moment. Lastly, payment terms. What are the payment terms? So the client says he's going to pay 50%. 50% is required prior production of the shoes, and which is okay. I guess it makes sense because the supplier needs capital to go and produce the stock, right? And now the supplier now wants 20%. 20%. What did they say? They wanted 20%. Let me just look at my notes quickly. 30% upon proof that the stock has been manufactured. So 50% payable prior manufacturing, 30% upon completion of manufacturing, and then the balance, which is 20%, is required on presentation of the bill of lading, which is a transport documentation. So basically, the supplier wants all the monies paid prior shipment. So the bill of lading does not necessarily mean that the goods have been loaded on board the vessel. So I'm going to get into the risks now. So I asked a lot of questions about the foreign supplier. How does the client know the foreign supplier? Who is the foreign supplier? Have they met them? How do they get to know them? So it turns out that the South African client, the South African business, used desktop research to find the supplier. So all the information that they got is from the internet. So they have not met the supplier. They don't have any confirmation that the business actually exists on the ground. So all the information they got from the internet, from social media pages, from the website, etc. And that's how they got comfort. And I did say that they need to dig deeper than that. I also asked questions about the product, the specifications of the product. Are they comfortable with the specifications of the product? And also, will there be inspection done on the shoes to ensure quality and quantity? Another point, I asked about the freight forwarder. Do they know who the freight forwarder is? Do they know who will be providing marine insurance? Since the supplier is the one who's going to appoint the freight forwarder and the marine insurance. Is it an internationally recognized freight forwarder or marine insurer? Because you need to be cognizant of the fact that should anything go sour, insurance will kick in, and now to claim for insurance that is in a foreign country can be challenged. Lastly, the payment terms. I asked, do you have to pay 100% of the invoice before you get the goods? 50, which is 50% before manufacturing, 30% post-manufacturing before shipment, and then the balance before you get the goods, before the goods are loaded on board the vessel. So basically, the client is letting go of all his money, and is exposed to the risk of not having stock in his hands. Now, here's my recommendations. So first of all, you need to do background check on the supplier, because international trade is a very risky business. We are not dealing with a local entity. You're dealing with an entity based in a country that you probably have not even been to, or if you have been there, you don't know exactly where this company is located. You do not have evidence that this business exists. It happens even locally, where a client or a company claims to exist, and when you go there, you find nothing but an empty space. It has happened to me as well when I was working for another entity, and I was now, after trying to reach them for so many times, I had to take a drive to their premises to see what was going on. That address did not exist. And this thing happens, whether it happens locally or globally. But now it's more dangerous and more costly when it's happening across the border. So there's many ways of doing due diligence on a foreign supplier, or if you're dealing with a foreign buyer. There's many ways of verifying that the business exists on the ground. You can use many entities. You can use government. In South Africa, we have consulates who are working for the Department of Trade and Industry. You can use it's escaping me now. Ambassadors. You can use ambassadors' offices to assist you to verify the existence of these businesses. You can use the chambers of commerce. You can use these independent inspection agencies at a fee so that they can go and verify for you that this business exists, and they can give you confirmation in writing, take pictures, whatever the case may be, for you to be comfortable that the business exists before you let go of your money. Now let's get into the financial instruments, or instruments that facilitate international trade. Here it's open account. There is no guarantee. There is no financial instrument or any instrument to facilitate the transaction. So once the client lets go of the money, the South African buyer lets go of the money, he has no guarantee that he's going to get what he has ordered. He has no guarantee that the supplier is going to perform under the contract. And remember, if the supplier is in default, the bank cannot get involved. The freight forwarder cannot get involved. The customs clearing agent cannot get involved. It is now the contract between the two businesses. And this is a matter of going to court. And now this will probably be in the jurisdiction of the supplier in China. And you can imagine the cost implications if you have to go to a court in a foreign country. It's flights, it's hotels, it's food, it's legal fees, which are in foreign currency. So it is not worth it for many small businesses. Hence, it's always important to get your ducks in the row. Very crucial. I also asked if it's not possible to negotiate better payment terms. If you cannot get into using an instrument to facilitate the trade, then negotiate for better payment terms. Rather, pay the 50% upfront, but then you need to ask for an inspection certificate to ensure that the quality is per the specification in the invoice on the contract. That will ensure that you're going to get exactly what you've ordered. And I said also that you need a loading certificate. So the inspection agency can issue you with a loading certificate where they ensure that the stock that you have ordered goes into the container gets sealed, and they can give you the confirmation that that stock that you have ordered is the one that is in the container that you're going to receive in your country. Because it has happened before. I had an incident before where a client ordered something, and when they opened the container, they found something else, and they had already let go of their money. So an inspection certificate is crucial. If you're dealing with an entity for the first time, it's not a blue chip company, you have not been to their premises, you do not know them from above, so always ask for inspection certificate. There's lots of freight forwarders that move goods all the time, but if you do not have any kind of guarantee and you don't even know which freight forwarder you're using, you're exposing yourself to further risk, because this means that the supplier can appoint any freight forwarder, any cheap freight forwarder, to move the stock for you, which exposes you to risk of things like theft, non-delivery, etc. As much as there's marine insurance, the marine insurance is not taken by you, it's taken by the foreign supplier that has been chosen by the foreign supplier. So you have no control. And this is a big transaction. Lastly, on the questions I asked who is offering marine insurance. Who's offering marine insurance? Because you need to know who you're going to claim from. Should the popo hit the fan, where are you going to go? Is this an internationally recognized insurer? Because now you are dealing on an international scale. Is this an insurer that is trusted and reliable? Will you be able to claim from them? Will they be able to process your claim effectively and efficiently? So my recommendation was that let there be a letter of credit or a performance guarantee. Let there be inspection certificate so that you ensure that you get the specifications that you've ordered in terms of the product. I also recommended do not use CIF when you're importing. You want to have control. Rather be the one to appoint a freight forwarder, and the freight forwarder will normally offer marine insurance, so that should anything happen, you know that you can approach a local entity to claim for damages, be it theft or whatever the case is. So CIF when you're importing, I would not recommend it, and that is my view. When you are importing, you want to have as much control as possible of the stock. In fact, I recommend that you appoint an entity to go and collect the stock from the supplier's premises, from their ground, and arrange logistics from their warehouse to your warehouse. Because either way, you are going to pay for the logistics, because when the supplier is the one responsible for the shipping, they are going to include that in the invoice. So you are going to pay for freight in any case, so you might as well have control over it. That was my recommendation. Then I put it in writing, and I emailed it to the client. Mine is to provide guidance and advice. I cannot force anybody to take it. So the gentleman said no. He's been in business. He knows what he's doing. This Chinese supplier is legit. Look, no shade to any country, but I'm making this example. It could be any other country, because crime happens everywhere. Breaches of contracts happen anywhere in the world. And he decided to go with his original idea of going open account, CIF, no inspection on the stock, no guarantees whatsoever. And he continued with his payment terms. He did not want to take my advice to negotiate on payment terms. He did not take my advice on ensuring that he's secured. See, you'd rather pay some cost to secure yourself than to lose, because when you lose, you're going to lose a lot. So the client went his own way after he consulted with me. He did not take any of my advice, which is no offense to me because I have done my part. So then I hear a month later, about a month and a half later, not from him, but I hear that the container arrived in Durban. Then from Durban, it was couriered to his warehouse. I think he's based in Benoni, Boksburg, somewhere near the airport. The container arrived, it's offloaded. The container gets opened. And what do you find? It's all white shoes with laces. But it is shoes of the left feet. All left. Nothing for the right foot. So there was no matching. You know what I'm saying? Because a shoe is supposed to be one for the left foot, one for the right foot, right? So if you've got a size 5, it must be a size 5. It must be a pair of shoes, same size, left and right. So all the shoes were for the left feet, different sizes. A container full of sneakers, left, for the left feet, different sizes. So what now? The money is gone. He's already paid. The supplier has delivered. He did not ask for inspection certificate. He did not ask for performance guarantee, which could have been enforced by his bank. He did not cover himself from a lot of risks. And now he's sitting with shoes that cannot be worn by anyone because they're all left foot shoes. Now I get a call asking, how can this be corrected? Well, the transaction has liquidated. Delivery is done, payment is done, the transaction is complete. It's liquidated, done. So because you don't have a guarantee to call on, you don't have an inspection certificate to call on, nothing. What is left is now for you to go to court, because I cannot assist. A freight forwarder cannot assist. A customs clearing agent cannot assist. Your bank cannot assist. So what is left is for the business now to go to court, a Chinese court. And it was not going to be worth it. So I hear that the gentleman eventually had to leave the company because he created such a loss. And I know that it must have taken the company a long time to recover from that loss, but definitely a lesson learned. So this is just one example. There are many examples that I can share with you. And this is not to scare you. This is just to show you how important it is to speak to the experts in your industry. Speak to your clearing agent. Speak to your freight forwarder. Speak to your banker. Speak to anybody who is a specialist in their areas of international trade to assist you to negotiate the deal, to structure the deal, and to execute it so that you can avoid risks. Look, many times, not many times, sometimes, from time to time, something can happen. You might forget a small detail in a transaction, but if it's something that could have been unforeseen, it can easily be corrected. If your freight forwarder has made an error, or your custom clearing agent or your bank, when it's them that have made an error, or it's them that did not highlight something to you, then they will take the responsibility and try to assist you. So I hope this has been helpful. Please share.